Welcome in, everybody. James Phillips here. It's DME PrepZone. You thought we were done, but we're not done. We've got our Players of the Year awards that we're going to be giving out today, joined by Brian Hale, Johnathan Bentley. Guys, football season has come and gone, and this is a special time of year where we get to recognize some of the best players from our area.
Yep, and we've got a good number of them. There was a lot of guys that made good contributions all around to their teams and their efforts, so that's what we're going to be doing today.
Can we just restart football season?
Yeah, I think we should.
It was so fun, you know.
Yeah.
This year.
It was.
We had a good year. We didn't like the ending, going out in the second round of the playoffs. Hoped we'd go a little further for all of our teams, but still a very fun year. And just starting PrepZone, that was a lot of fun for us, and I think a lot of fun for the people that have watched all season long.
Yeah,
It should only get better.
Right. Yeah, you think so.
yeah, especially for the kids too. You know, the kids enjoyed it so much. We heard that feedback-wise from the coaches and from the fans that the kids really loved it.
Let's jump right into things. Our first recipient will go to the PrepZone Offensive Lineman of the Year. Guys, coming into third place of this category was Cordova's Jackson McLemore, and then Oakman's Caleb Pedraza comes in second. But the winner this year goes to Jasper's C.R. Wallace. And honestly, I got to see CR play a lot this year, and I've got to know him over the last couple of years, and he was so out of shape, like the last two seasons, that he didn't really play a lot. He played some JV ball. The Jasper coaches didn't know who their center was going to be really this year. You know, they had lost their center from last year in Ryan Pugh, and he was a great player, all-state player, and they didn't know what was going to happen. And they told CR that if he would lose the weight and work hard, that they thought he could be the guy. And he lost like 35 pounds. And for a high schooler to lose 35 pounds and get into that kind of shape, that says a lot about his attitude and his tenacity to be able to play ball, and has just done a great job this year. Made no mistakes. There was no bad snaps, no snaps over the head. You know, so hats off to CR, and the whole Jasper offensive line played really well this year.
Well, as from a leadership standpoint, everybody on the team will automatically say offensively it's the quarterback. The next after that is the center. It's got to be a good exchange. He's the one that gets all the offensive linemen set, make sure everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to do. So that was a big key for this offensive unit to be as strong as they were.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know how valuable a center is till you lose one.
Right.
Or you have the third string center in. I mean,
Right.
It's, like you said, it's the quarterback of the team on
Right.
the offensive line. But also, I mean, that line, you look at the yardage they put up this year, it was the second most points Jasper ever scored. The whole line was outstanding. Could have been
Right.
anybody, but
Yeah.
Roberts, that was key
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah,
Especially
him.
getting that shape like you're talking about. You don't see that very often.
And they had a couple different linemen to do that this year. They had a younger lineman that did the same thing, lost a lot of weight and got himself in a really good playing shape. And then a lot of the other linemen, they were trying to put weight on because they wanted more weight on them. But just a great job by the Jasper offensive line this year. Let's go to the next one. Johnathan, you're going to take care of that one for us, right?
We are hitting on the defensive line. All right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. We have A.J. Odom, great player for Oakland. Levi Tidwell, great player for Curry. But it looks like the winner is going to be E.J. Colbert, another Jasper player. And, I mean, they have so many. They could basically have a guy at every position, it seems like.
Right.
But Colbert was outstanding. I mean, I think he stood out last year in the first game, got hurt, and came back this year and was just stellar. I think he had 70-something tackles.
He's a guy who can, if he's playing and he's on, he can take over a game. Like he can cause so much disruption that the other team's offense doesn't know what to do. And he did that, you know, for the most part throughout games this year.
Well, I mean, you don't see a defensive lineman from a standpoint, unless they're getting a lot of backfield penetration, you don't see a defensive lineman get 70 tackles. That's extremely prophetic. I mean, that's big time.
Well, and having a player like EJ coming back is going to be huge for Jasper now that we know that they're moving from 5A to 6A, so they're going to be in Region 6 with people like Pinson Valley, Mortimer Jordan, Clay Chalkville, Gardendale, Minor, and Jackson Olin. I mean, what kind of schedule is that?
Well, that's a lot like their schedule 2 years ago. That's a lot of the same opponents that they had before they moved down to 5A. So realistically, they know what they're getting into, but still, That's kind of a murderer's row, isn't it? I mean,
It's unbelievable.
Ooh,
I mean, when you saw that, it had to be a punch in the gut a little bit. I mean, yes, they're going to say, hey, we're going to be ready for this competition, but I mean, the good thing is they have played, some of these kids have played against that competition.
Right, they have, and also, as we talked about with the offensive line and things like that, this is a different Jasper team than was competing in 6A. They're bigger, stronger, and they may be ready for that kind of competition.
very could well be.
They're going to find out quick.
Yeah,
and
they
these
will.
Garden, yeah, a couple years ago, they couldn't compete with these teams. But like you said, it's a different mindset. It's a different weight room. Everything's changed. We'll find out.
We'll definitely find out. All right, Brian, I think you've got our next one.
Yeah, punter of the year. This one's relatively easy for us. 42, a net average of 42 yards per punt. He just got signed to minor, Brady Spradlin. I mean, guys, we've had Spradlins now for what, 9 years
Yeah, it
practically.
seems like a long, long time.
And they've always produced. So yet again, our punter of the year, Brady Spradlin, all you had to do was just watch him line up and punt away and know that he was tops.
Well, and really, the only two that I would have even halfway considered for this award would be Grayson Deal from Jasper or Brady Spradlin, and Brady had a better punting average and has just boomed kicks all year long.
Yeah, and it was prophetic, and he's done that for the past 2 years that he was there since he took over for his brother Jack.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to, this is the end of the Spradlins for now.
Yeah,
But, yeah, it's been a great run. 42 yards of kick. I mean, in
Yeah.
high school,
that's a good
that's
average.
a weapon.
Yeah.
It really is, and it has been for years.
And Dora, they're moving down from 5A to 4A, which is huge for them because they were the smallest 5A. And they're getting into a region with teams like Asheville, Etowah, Fultondale, Good Hope. It's a lot better for them than, what it was in 5A, where they were having to compete with, schools that were way, way, way much bigger with them.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a region that Dora can. They finished 2-8 this year. Mm-hmm. I think next year you've got to look at that schedule and think playoffs for sure. But I think it's a region they can compete in most years.
Yeah, I mean, how strange is it they're going into the season on an 8-game losing streak?
Right.
Yeah.
Since they had that Jasper loss, they never won a game again. But they had to have this move happen. I mean, I couldn't believe they were over 5A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you got Cordova's 5A and Dora's 4A. Who would ever thought that?
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
But, I mean, they have a very good chance. I mean, teams they should be playing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no Russellville on here, no Jasper.
Right. Yeah. It'll be definitely a competitive region for Dora.
Oh, and Curry will be in the same classification as them. They're staying in 4, but they're in a different region.
Right.
They're in there with Fayette County, Haleyville, Northside, Oak Grove. That hadn't changed, but Gordo actually moves up from 3A to 4A, and then Hamilton moves down from 5A to 4A.
Right.
So that gets a little changed up, and that's not going to be easy for Curry. There's really good teams in that. I mean, Gordo moving down is nasty, and do we even need to touch what Hamilton does when you play them at Hamilton?
Right. Well, and Hamilton's another team kind of like Dora. They were kind of out of their element in 5A, but being in 4A, that's right in their wheelhouse, and they're going to be good. No matter if they get home cooking but on the road, they'll be much better competing at a 4A level.
All right. In the 4A, we'll have John Holliday coming back to town at Etowah.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Back at Dora.
Yeah, he will be. All right, Brian, you've got our next one too with the linebacker of the year.
Yeah, linebacker of the year. Ashton Nash for Cordova was our third placer. Had a great year, was part of that big Sergeants. Harrison Saunders, he has been a cornerstone for a long time for Jasper. Always gets good tackles on it. But he started out as our linebacker of the year, is ending the linebacker of the year. Alex Atkins, guys, 133 tackles, 23 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and even recorded a safety. So he's responsible for 2 points for Carbon Hill as well. Just a good leader in the classroom as well. Very high academics. It's been quite a run for Alex.
We have some good linebackers.
Yeah.
Here. We always do. And Jasper had another stellar linebacker. I mean, Atkins has been here. He's been doing this since freshman year.
Right.
Yeah, and they finally I was glad he finally made the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a class that broke that 20-year streak this season.
Well, and with Nash and Saunders, and then we also had players like Taurus Rudolph and Jacob Danner. I mean, those guys, they were
Outstanding.
really good linebackers.
Yeah.
And this one was probably, to me, this was the closest between Adkins and Saunders. Like, as far as all of our list goes, this was as close as it gets over who's better and who's not, you know.
My guess is you'll see both those guys on All-State.
Yeah, I would think so.
I would think so.
All right, you know, mentioning Carbon Hill, they're unmoved in the region. That's one of the few teams that's not going anywhere. And then Oakman left and came back due to some craziness with the High School Athletic Association, which is a shock.
Thanks, AHSA.
But it's Region 6. They're going to be in there with Holly Pond, J.B. Pennington, Susan Moore, Tarrant, Vinemont, and Winfield. And you got to think, you know, other than Susan Moore and Winfield, those are some pretty less than stellar teams that Carbon Hill and Oakman will be competing against.
Guys, I took a note of this. There is a lot of teams like J.B. Pennington, Tarrant, Vinemont. There's a lot of those schools that you look down the list. They were all like 3 wins on the season.
Right.
So this is really advantageous to Carbon Hill and who joins them, Oakman,
Right.
staying in the same region. Very advantageous.
And also, we'll mention while we're talking about those not region changes, Lynn and Meek are in the same region. Addison, Winston County both stay in 2A and are now in the same region. Corner still in 5A, and then we've already talked about Curry. They're staying in Class 4A. But despite proximity, them and Dora did not end up in the same region as we mentioned before.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Very strange. I was hoping, we always hope, we want to see these games, you know?
Right.
And it helps us. Instead, now we have they're scattered.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really wanted to have some teams in the same regions. All right, let's go to, it's my turn, the returner of the year. And I'm going to throw out a honorable mention or a second place. I think should be Avram Berry from Jasper. That guy is fast as lightning, and never was able to get loose during the season. Had one return in the playoffs for a touchdown, and that was it. But then for Curry, one of the bright spots for the Yellow Jackets this year, Ethan Weidman. He was a really good receiver. Did a great job returning kicks and put them. He was probably their best person as far as field position. You know, he's the only one that got him in good field position a lot of times.
I mean, he was the one stable force that you would see every single game would have a punt return, it seemed, for a touchdown. I mean, everyone that we covered. The only game that I didn't see him run one back for a touchdown was against Addison. I mean, he was constantly running him back, or at least putting him in good field position.
Right.
Yeah, he had double-digit touchdowns for Curry. I mean, that's most of their offense right there.
Yeah.
This kid had never played before the season. And just exploded. He had a great season.
Yeah. All right, now we're going to defensive back of the year, and I'll handle that one as well. Third place, Matthew Wallace at Carbon Hill. Second place, Mason Slaughter from Jasper, who was a new player this year, had not played. Wow. Stepped in and played really well. And then the winner is Sheldrick Cherry, a senior from Jasper. Sheldrick just played outstanding. 63 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, a sack, 3 interceptions, 10 pass deflections, and 1 fumble recovery. Sheldrick was one of those guys that's all over the field all the time and made plays and played with a lot of passion. You could tell anytime he'd make a big tackle, he's jumping up, he's celebrating, and not going too far with it, but just showed the passion that he has for the game. And I'm really proud to be able to see him as the winner of this one.
Well, a defensive back like that is what every defensive coach absolutely loves, because when you have a guy that breaks open to the open field, to be able to close that range and limit it, that's exactly what you're wanting. And obviously, Sheldrick did it. The games that I saw, he was an absolute beast.
Well, one guy we didn't mention, though, that we definitely need to mention, he didn't have a ton of tackles. Kevon Samuel from Jasper had 3 picks, took them all back to the house. So that's pretty impressive, too.
Yeah, that is.
You know, he was a sophomore this year.
Yeah, he was a sophomore this year.
For a couple of years, but
Yeah, I got a feeling before his run at Jasper's over, we'll be mentioning him as a defensive back of the year.
Why anyone would throw his way?
Right.
I mean, you see 3 returns.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, don't even throw to him.
Right.
We're now going to receiver of the year. Have 3 good candidates. Let's start with Caden Airmore, Summon Christian. They didn't have a great season. This kid did. 8 touchdowns, over 600 yards. Then we had Adam O'Rear, a kid that really burst on the scene for Cordova this year.
Right.
Another 600-yard guy. I mean, without him, I don't know if they'd have made the playoffs. But our winner is another Jasper kid, their go-to guy for Parker Sawyer. That will be Xavier Waldrop. He had 493, 3 touchdowns. He was just one of those guys, when he had to make a pass, this is the guy you want to get it to.
Right. His stats weren't as good this year as they were last
No,
year.
they weren't. I mean, last year, well, it was career to Sawyer.
Right.
So it was a change, but it was a change that worked.
Right.
And, he didn't have a whole lot of touchdowns, but he got things done. He got them down to the goal line, stuff like that, to where they get it to Shelton.
Right.
And he had the catch of the year.
Oh, that's right.
The
How did I
filthiest
forget this?
catch that I have seen in a long time.
Yeah, he did have a really good catch in the corner game.
Yeah.
Corner.
Yeah.
And I guess he can thank his wide receiver coach for that, who
Right.
That
was
should-
known for his catch.
Right.
So,
Playing under Coach Prothrow probably taught him a little bit about a miraculous
The
catch.
video of that was incredible.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a really good
Because,
video.
you hear about things, and a lot of times in high school you don't see it.
Right.
But we actually got to see this, and
Yeah.
we lived up to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Great catch.
All right, Brian, let's see. We're going, well, you mentioned Sumter Christian then, and they're dropping from 2A to 1A, and that's probably going to be a really good move for Sumter Christian. They're going to be in Region 7 and 1A, Appalachian, Cedar Bluff, Coosa Christian, Galesville, Valley Head, and Woodville. And out of that region, the only team, there's a couple teams with winning records, but the most wins out of that region this year was Cedar Bluff with 7. Two
Yeah.
other teams had 6, and the rest of them absolute losers.
yeah, Appalachian is a program that really goes up and down. They'll have 6 or 7 wins for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they'll go to 2 wins.
Right.
They're really, really shifty. And Woodville, this is probably Woodville's best year in a long time. They're usually 1 or 2 wins a season.
4 and 7.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Woodville's. That means they made the playoffs.
But, Sumter Christian has a history of playing well in Class 1A. And I would think that with Coach David Powell and the steps they took this year, even though they didn't win as many games, I think that's a great region for them to end up in.
The games were a lot closer.
Yeah.
And some of those games, I mean, the last season, back in 2018, except for their win against, it was really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
This year, they were competitive in a lot more games.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And they're
definitely.
adding Meek, which is on the non-region. I know is Meek and Brindley Mountain that combined for 0 wins. last year.
Right.
So, I mean, we could be looking at some. They can compete with these teams.
Right. I mean, you can
That's the thing.
legitimately, you can say they could win 7 games.
I was
Or
gonna say
more?
5.
I mean, but definitely 5. I mean, I think 5 for sure. you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely.
But you're looking at a possible playoff berth for Summerton next year, probably, if they just
Yeah.
play how we think they could play.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how about now we're going to go to running back of the year. Brian, you've got that one.
Oh, this one was very tough. We talked about the linebacker race being tough. I'm about to throw out some names here, and this tells you how tough it is. Third, who actually started off as our offensive play of the year, is actually going to be Christian Hubbard for Oakman. Second, Caden Shelton, ones that we saw very much this year. But when it really boiled down to it, Justin Wallace for Cordova. Guys, Justin Wallace just caught fire in the middle of the season and just went crazy. He was running for 250 to 300 yards a game, was scoring touchdowns left or right. I can honestly tell you, if it wasn't for Justin Wallace, Cordova would not have made it to the playoffs. They would have been good to win 2 or 3 games this year. So to me, he's hands down way above everyone else, just by the sheer might of, I mean, he was the most reliable thing that they had in the time when the offensive line gave him plenty of room to run.
Yeah, he exploded on the scene. I mean, it was one of those kids that, last year we didn't really know who was good. I thought maybe their quarterback and running back had a chance to do better, but I did not know they had this sitting there.
Right, yeah.
I mean, a lot more kids played, a lot more help around them, but the guy was explosive.
Right.
More explosive than anybody else in the county.
Okay, guys, Cordova's the final team we have not talked about. We kind of mentioned them earlier in reclassification, but they're going from 4A to 5A. First time in school history that they're going to be that high. I remember when I was in high school, Dora was 5A and Cordova was 3A. And now they're almost swapped that, They're going to be in Region 6, joined by Carver, Fairfield, John Carroll, Parker, the state runner-up Pleasant Grove, Ramsey, another really good team, and Winona. Now, out of those teams, Pleasant Grove and Ramsey, the only ones with a winning record, but still, that is a big jump as far as just who they're playing this next year.
Yeah, that's almost nightmarish.
Yeah, I was not expecting this.
Right.
Coach said they were,
Yeah,
but they didn't know where they would throw them.
where they fall in at. But
This
at
is
least they're not going to have to travel a huge amount. I mean,
easy.
it's Birmingham. Everything is in Birmingham.
A lot of interstate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But should be interesting to see how Cordova. I honestly think they'll match up okay with some of these teams.
Yeah, it's just weird because we know the names and we just think of them as huge schools, and you think of Cordova as like a 3A.
Right.
I do.
Right.
You know.
Because that's what we're used
They
to.
won it in 3A.
Yeah. But they've had an influx of players. Parish closing, things like that. New school at Cordova. There's been more people come in. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I think it'll be really cool to see them playing at some of those Birmingham schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, you've got our next one. It's going to be the quarterback of the year.
Yeah, one of the this was contested pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had third place was Con Daniel, a very good corner team.
Mm-hmm.
A team we don't talk about a lot, but they made the playoffs. They played well, had a good season for Clements.
Yeah.
Almost won in the first round at Madison County.
Right. Well, and I think we would have talked about them more had they not gone through that injury issue where they had so many guys get hurt early and they lost, 3 games in a row that really put them behind the 8 ball, and then bounced back and had a great ending to the year and should have beat Madison County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they filled those holes.
Right.
Which is hard to do when you have those kind of injuries.
Right.
It is.
And second is Cason Smith, another guy we're talking about. Cordova kind of exploded on the scene this year.
Right.
We didn't really know what we had there. And he had
Right.
a great season.
He was their quarterback the year before, but they just were so bad you didn't know what he was. Yeah.
Running for his life.
Right.
And he had a line this year. But the winner is another Jasper kid, Parker Sawyer. First year as starting quarterback. 9 touchdowns, 1,500 yards, 4 picks. He wasn't that prolific, but he got the job done. I would
Right.
call him like a game manager type.
Right. That's exactly what they were looking for out of him, I think. It was more of the game manager and don't do anything to hurt us.
Right. I mean, they had a career last year that was,
The most
Phenomenal.
explosive player we've seen in a long time.
So it was a big change. But, they went 11-1 for a reason.
Right.
It was
Right.
solid.
Now we go to our coach of the year. We had some guys do some outstanding jobs on the sidelines this year. Chavis Williams at Carbon Hill getting into the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. That's a tremendous job. John Clements at corner, we talked about them overcoming injuries. We thought they were the second best team in that region coming into the year. And I think very well, even though they finished 4th, I think they were the second best team ending the year. And then also Justin Jones at Cordova. We thought this was a Cordova team that could make a turnaround, and to go from 0-5 to 5-5 and make the playoffs and lose to a team that made it to the state championship. Very good season, but undefeated regular season, made it to the second round, lost to the eventual 2-time state champion, Central Clay. We've got to give Coach of the Year to Coach Brian Moore of the Jasper Vikings. What a tremendous job that he's done in 2 years. 22 wins in 2 years, taking over a team that had been 3-7 the year before he came on board. That's just an outstanding job.
And just school's first ever #1 ranking in any time, which they held for over 3/4 of the season.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
The bulk of the season, they were #1.
And your only loss is to the state champion,
Right.
who they actually beat during the regular season.
Right, and even made it into the power rankings that AL.com does, for statewide, for a 5A school to be in those power rankings, that's quite a statement. And I think the thing that we miss sometimes, Coach Moore and his staff does an outstanding job every Friday night, but they do an even better job throughout the community. Every day, even in the off season. Like this past week, I get a little closer to it because I got a kid on the team, but they were delivering food boxes to a couple of different churches who are giving food out for the holidays. Things like that he gets the players to do that might not see in other places. He does an Adopt a Viking program where people in the community give funds or they just hang out, they mentor players on the team. That makes a huge difference in these kids' lives while they're here in high school, but it's going to push them to do better things once they're out of high school. So I think the things that Coach Moore and his staff does off the field is another reason to give him this award as well.
It's going to have long-lasting good effects on the community. We're going to see it eventually when these kids are out in the community leading, when they become coaches, when they have kids, we're going to see it long-term.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, getting him, now looking back, I mean, what an incredible hire.
Oh, yeah.
Jasper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it took a lot of guts. I mean, he's a young guy. He's 33 years old.
Yeah,
From
South Alabama.
to hire some guy that's never been in North Alabama for anything, didn't know any of these teams he's going to be playing against. That was a shot in the dark by the administration. They did a good job.
30, man, guys, that's making me feel old.
Yeah, I know.
33.
Thankfully, Coach Moore looks older than he is. Like he looks as old as we do, so that helps out a little bit. How about Player of the Year? We've talked about some great players throughout this show. And one guy that has been mentioned, and he did not get his position award, but he is going to get our overall Player of the Year because he did so many different things. And I think that was the key.
Yeah.
It's Caden Shelton. Caden Shelton had 27 total touchdowns this season. He threw for over 200 yards with 2 touchdowns. He had 1,100 yards and 20 touchdowns on the ground. And then he also almost caught 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And so, I mean, he was involved in everything on the best team that we had in the area by far. And every time they needed a big play, who did they turn to?
Well, and I mean, guys, you look at that last number, 1,575 all-purpose yards. That, to me, is why he gets Player of the Year. Running, obviously, he was a good running back. But to be, when you're looking at the all-around player, I guarantee you if he played defense, he would probably be racking up 50 tackles to go along with this if he was playing for a 3A team.
Right. Well, and if he didn't have, we didn't mention on our running backs, J.C. Collins is one of the best running backs we have in the area. Went down with a knee injury late, but he pushed Caden, and he was getting just as many carries as Caden was at running back. And so if if Caden was the only guy on the team getting those carries, like some of the other players in the area, those numbers would be even bigger.
Yeah.
Because Collins maybe had more yards than him when he got hurt.
I think it was really close.
We're talking, this guy was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a backup. It was basically 2 starters.
Right. And I think he pushed Caden to be better because Caden lost a lot of weight this year going in, a lot leaner, faster, stronger, and took care of the football. That's the guy that you didn't have to worry about fumbling the football. Just played tremendous this year. And 8 of 11 passing.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
209 yards, that's more passing yards than some of our starting quarterbacks probably had on a few teams this year.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he was a legitimate threat every time he touched that ball to do something, and that was scary. That's, to me, is what awards him the Offensive Player of the Year because you never know what way he was going to score a touchdown. Could have been through the air throwing it, could have been receiving it, could have been running it.
And the thing is, if he is at a 3A, he's a quarterback.
Yeah,
No.
he definitely is, yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and he's a good baseball player. That's why you can see his arm. You know, he could throw the football. He might have a better throw than the quarterbacks on the team. I don't know. You know, it's close.
Could be.
Well, guys, before we go, I want to say thank you to you guys. You guys do a tremendous job during football season and throughout the year. And I don't think we get to say it enough. And most of the time, the phone calls you field throughout the season are not pats on the back, but just, hey, you know, you're not talking about this team enough, you're not talking about my kid enough, and that sort of thing. But for people out there, they need to know how much work that you guys put into it, and I appreciate you guys as your boss, leader, friend, whatever. Y'all do a really good job, and it makes football a lot of fun in Jasper, Alabama.
Well, if we didn't love it, we wouldn't be doing it. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I hate to see it end every year.
Yeah.
Look forward to it so much, and then it's over.
Yeah, and so now we just have to make it bigger and better next year.
Mm-hmm.
We will.
We will.
Guys, we also want to thank our sponsors from this year. Southern Orthopedic was a great title sponsor. They did everything PrepZone. We also had sponsors each week from Nelson Bryan and Cross Law Firm, Bell State Community College, Kilgore Green Funeral Home, and Bank of Walker County. All those guys believed in us when we threw out a crazy idea that we're going to change the way we do high school football coverage, and we appreciate all their help this year.
Yeah, MVPs for them as well. Really good job. They were help us with our broadcast. as well, sponsoring our broadcast that we did each week on both not only the Jasper but also the county games of the week.
Right, and everybody doesn't get to see Jeffrey Winborn for this particular show, but he's usually with us on camera. Today he's actually producing the show. We want to thank him and thank Jake Aaron and Mallory Breakfield, who always produce the shows for us as well. And for you guys, I'm James Phillips, and we just want to say thank you guys for watching.